A Biblical Approach to Evidences for God, Jesus, and the Bible, Part 15, Harmonies of the Testimonies. Mark 14, 15, 5, and 56. One proof that the witnesses who testified against Jesus were false witnesses is the fact that their testimony was inconsistent. They didn't agree among themselves. If the testimony of some witnesses clearly contradicts that of other witnesses, then the testimony of them all becomes doubtful. We don't know who to believe, so we doubt them all. As with any eyewitness records, Bible accounts may vary from one another in their details. It's characteristic of eyewitness testimony that different witnesses will observe and remember different details. But these variations can be harmonized by taking all of the accounts and putting them together. When such variations occur, there is no proof of contradiction, unless there is no explanation that can reasonably harmonize the accounts. So long as no real contradiction exists, variation in the details of accounts actually serves to strengthen the testimony. The various details cause the accounts of the witnesses to strengthen and support one another, thereby providing the plural witnesses that valid history requires. Nothing is more commonly known in the Department of Civil Jurisprudence than the testimony given by different witnesses whose statements too closely resemble each other. It is then invalidated thereby. It looks like collusion. It casts a suspicion of fraud. As we examine the various lines of evidence, we'll observe how the testimony of the witnesses harmonize to support and strengthen one another without contradicting one another. Compare Bible witnesses to other witnesses. Consider, for example, the witnesses to the Book of Mormon. In an attempt to validate the Book of Mormon, Joseph Smith obtained testimony from two sets of witnesses. A group of 8 witnesses testified that they had seen, handled, and hefted the plates from which Smith claimed to have translated the Book of Mormon. They claimed that the plates appeared to be gold, with engraving that appeared to be ancient work and curious workmanship. Another group of 3 witnesses testified that an angel brought the plates before them, so they saw the plates and the engraving on them, and a voice told them that Smith was translating the plates by the gift and power of God. To help us understand the power of the testimony of witnesses, let's examine this evidence. The group of 8 witnesses actually proves nothing, except perhaps that Smith had some plates that looked like gold and had curious workmanship on them. How does this prove they were from God, or that they were properly translated? Faking such plates is surely possible. And if Smith really had them, why allow only 8 men to see them? Why not hundreds more, like the hundreds who saw Jesus after his resurrection? And if Smith personally possessed them, why did it take an angel to convince the other 3 men that he possessed them? 9 of the 11 witnesses were closely related to one another or to Joseph Smith himself. 5 of them were Whitmer men, and a 6th, Hiram Page, was married to a Whitmer girl. 3 others were Joseph's own father and brothers. If Smith really had these plates, Why could he not produce more independent witnesses? The book Articles of Faith by a Mormon author, James Talmage, published and distributed by the Mormon Church, acknowledges on page 504 that 4 of the 11 witnesses eventually left the Mormon Church, 2 by excommunication, and 2 by withdrawing from the church. He could only claim 4 witnesses who remained faithful in the church. That leaves 3 others for which he made no claim that they continued in the church. So, of the 11 witnesses, Talmage could cite only 4 who remained in the church, and at least that many had left the church altogether. What kind of witnesses are these for the Book of Mormon? Specifically, of the 3 witnesses who claimed to hear the testimony of the angel, Brody documents that all 3 later followed a young seeress who, like Joseph Smith, claimed to use a stone to receive revelations, but Smith opposed her revelations. Furthermore, all 3 left the church at one time or another. Pages 78, 205, and 217. It's unclear whether 1 or 2 may have eventually returned and stayed at the church. By way of contrast to the 13 apostles, counting Paul, who testified to Jesus' resurrection, not 1 ever left Jesus' church or in any way remained untrue to his testimony. Brigham Young later acknowledged that some of the witnesses, included in some who allegedly saw the angel, came to doubt and to disbelieve that they had ever seen an angel. Furthermore, there's much evidence that Joseph Smith and numerous Mormon leaders repeatedly accused various ones of the witnesses, including the 3 who saw the angel, of lying, cheating, swindling, stealing, and even making counterfeit money. This is taken from Mormonism, Shadow or Reality, Gerald and Sandra Tanner, pages 50 through 54. If the Mormons themselves viewed these men as being so dishonest, why should we believe their testimony regarding the golden plates? When were Jesus' apostles ever accused of such things, especially by other Christians? And this is the strongest eyewitness testimony Mormonism offers. Why don't the Mormons have eyewitness testimony of hundreds of miracles and dozens of examples of fulfilled prophecies to confirm the Book of Mormon, like we have for the Bible? Why is it that so many Mormon witnesses were not independent at all, but closely related, yet as often as not they left the faith they bore witness to? Compare this to the kind of evidence we'll offer to substantiate the Bible's claims. As we consider the evidence for the Bible, ask yourself why there's no such evidence for the claims of the Book of Mormon, or the Quran, or other books that claim to be revelations from God. The fact is that in any other area, the men who wrote the Bible would be considered ideal witnesses. Had they written about other historical topics, they would be accepted as models of historical evidence. Only one thing prevents people from accepting their testimony. People don't like what the witnesses say. They're not willing to believe that miracles and the resurrection really occurred. They don't want to obey the commands of Scripture or meet the demands of discipleship to Jesus. So they reject the testimony of the Bible witnesses, not because there's any fault in the witnesses or any weakness in their testimony, but simply because the hearers don't want to accept the consequences of the evidence. In part 15.